As we speak, the CIA is working with the GUR to use Russian nationalist groups to invade Russia. Invade Russia. Invade Russia. That means that 5,000 Russian nationalists trained by the United States, equipped by the United States, directed by the United States, operated under the umbrella of Ukrainian intelligence, are leaving Ukrainian soil and invading the soil of Russia in Belgorod and Kerch. Now, they've been defeated, but again, they invaded. We're not talking about Boy Scout games here. We're talking about acts of war. We are talking about nuclear war here, and it's on full automatic, meaning that once this begins, it doesn't stop until the world is ended. It's on full automatic. That's why we published this memorandum, because as an American, I'd like, at least before I die in a nuclear holocaust, I'd like Congress, my representatives, to discuss this. Is this what we want? And the purpose of this invasion, which began in early March, was to disrupt the election of Vladimir Putin. It's just stated that the heads of these nationalist groups have said this, and Ukrainian intelligence has said this, and it's a long-time mission of the CIA to accomplish this. So we say that. So now we know that the CIA is capable of carrying out acts of violence on Russian soil. So now we go to what happened in Moscow. We know that these perpetrators were already operating in Russia. They left for some training in Turkey, came back. The timing, they were supposed to launch their attack. They cased out this venue. The attack was supposed to be launched on or about March 8th or 9th. Why? Why that venue on that date? Because a Russian superstar named Shaman was performing on that date, a patriotic concert that was going to be attended by many high-ranking people. That's the day it was supposed to happen, but the security was too tight, so the terrorists backed off, went underground, and waited until security reduced. Why would they attack on that day? Again, to disrupt the election, to undermine confidence in Vladimir Putin. The United States says they provided intelligence. First of all, the duty to report aspect of the U.S. intelligence community. When you find out information about a pending terrorist attack, you must inform the target of that. That duty to report is done. It only works if it's done through official channels. Why? Because you're officially saying this intelligence is the real deal. You need to act on it. Anatoly Antonov, the Russian ambassador to Washington, to the United States, says he was sitting there. Nobody called him. Nobody formally called the Russian government. It was done through unofficial channels, which is, for instance, if you're a judge and I'm a lawyer and I'm supposed to deliver a judicial document to you, I do it through formal channels. That gives it's listed. I don't meet you in the men's room and sort of slide it to you and go, hey, here, judge, here's something for you. Because that has it's not a real document. It's unofficial. That's how we gave the intelligence to Russia, an unofficial connection, sort of sliding it in. And what are the Russians supposed to do with it? If it's official, if it's real, give it to the ambassador, give it to the head of intelligence, do something, but don't slide it under a door. So there's that. But that means that we were cognizant of something. We claim that it was ISIS, the Islamic State Khorasan, this Afghan offshoot of it. Let me talk about that just for a second.
All right, known as ISIS-K.
ISIS-K, correct. It's an Islamic, obviously an Islamic terrorist organization. These terrorists, before they commit acts, have historically posted videos or photographs of themselves taking the Shahada, which is the oath of affirmation to Islam. The Shahada is sort of de rigueur for jihadists, and they tend to do it by raising their right index finger. Why? Well, because Osama bin Laden did it, because Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi did it. The right finger. And why is the right finger important? Because in Islam, the left hand is the hand of evil, the devil's hand. The right hand is the hand of God, the hand of good. If you're going to deliver the Shahada, which is not just the reciting of the words, but it's an act. It's a ritual, and you have to be pious. You deliver it with the right hand. These four fools delivered it with their left hand. It tells you all you need to know about the sincerity of their approach to Islam. Moreover, these weren't jihadists who were seeking to navigate their true north to martyrdom in heaven. These were mercenaries who received money from somebody to carry out a specific act of terrorism in Russia. And who is that person? Well, again, people always navigate to the true north, Judge. When special operations forces get compromised behind enemy lines, they navigate to their place of safety, to a zone to be extracted. Spies navigate to a safe haven. These terrorists would navigate to their safe haven. Now, if you're a jihadist, your safe haven is heaven. You give your life. These guys didn't give their lives. They navigated to their true north, Ukraine. They went to Ukraine, and the Russians have the phones, they have the phone records, they monitored the conversations real time. They know that they were communicating with people on the other side of the Ukrainian border to open up a passage through the border. This means that they were going back to those who recruited them and trained them, Ukrainian military intelligence, the GUR, which is the same thing as the CIA and MI6. America is behind this 100%.
This is an act of war of monumental proportions. It's an act of war on the civilians. It's an act of war with no legitimate military target. Did Bill Burns know about this? Did Tony Blinken know about this? Did Joe Biden know about this? How far up the chain of command would something like this go for the CIA to be able to assist, facilitate, or look with indifference at an attack that kills 140 innocent concert goers in a Moscow suburb?
In 1947, the United States Congress passed a sweeping reform of the U.S. intelligence community. In 1948, they updated it with the basically the covert action law. But basically, the CIA, through their what back then was called the Office of Special Services, but today is called the Special Activities Center, is the only agency of the United States authorized to carry out covert action. Covert action, just so everybody understands, is deniable by law. Clandestine action is where you're doing things, but if you get caught, you go, oh, yep, you had diplomatic cover, that's okay, we acknowledge this. Covert action means absolutely deniable, that it's never supposed to come back to the United States. The CIA's Special Activities Center is tasked with doing this. These are the people who are training the nationalists to invade Russia. These are the people who are carrying out sabotage operations deep inside Russia. For this to happen, the President of the United States, in the aftermath of the controversies of the 1970s, now is directed by law that he has to be briefed on this. The CIA can't do this without getting executive authority. And he has to sign what's called a presidential finding that gives the CIA the warrant to do this work. And this finding must be reported to a select group in the United States Congress. We call them the Gang of Eight. This is required by law. Now, the president has been, in past practice, been able to do something and then backfill with a post facto, finding. But either way, Congress must be notified. Otherwise, it's an illegal operation. It's a rogue operation. So the fact that the Special Activities Center is in Ukraine, we know this. They are there. They are training the Ukrainians on irregular warfare, unconventional warfare. This means terrorism. One man's freedom fighter is another man's terrorism. The CIA has a mission given to it by the President of the United States to train the Ukrainian intelligence services in acts of terrorism. They call it irregular warfare, unconventional warfare. They are doing this. This operation is part of that process. Now, the CIA, because of deniability, is given certain latitude on receiving broad instructions and then executing it with specifics that may not be known to the executive authority. That's part of the deniability, the covert aspect of it. But let there be no doubt, the President of the United States has directed the Central Intelligence Agency to carry out acts of violence inside Russia designed to undermine the authority of Vladimir Putin and to disrupt the elections that took place earlier this month.
Then the CIA, and I guess their colleagues in MI6, are the authors of this massacre.
What they did is they directed the Ukrainian intelligence service to carry out actions inside Ukraine of a covert nature designed
inside Russia
to disrupt the presidential elections. Whether the CIA knew that the target or knew this, that I can't say. There's a possibility that the Ukrainian intelligence service, selected a target the CIA wasn't aware of.
Right.
But I have to say that if they're attacking a concert hall, again, here's the deal: the specificity of the March 7th warning by the U.S. Embassy was concert hall, and the time frame given was during the concert that Shaman was supposed to deliver. So there's no doubt in my mind that the United States government knew that there was a pending attack being done by ISIS-K front, and they knew it was a front on a specific date. That tells me that the CIA knew exactly what's going on. I don't have evidence to that, but I will just tell you that, when you start connecting the dots, it's clear that the U.S. government had, foreknowledge about this attack, very specific information, and they didn't tell the Russians formally. They covered their bases by sliding something under the door. We are talking about nuclear war here, and it's on full automatic, meaning that once this begins, it doesn't stop until the world is ended. It's on full automatic. That's why we published this memorandum, because as an American, I'd like, at least before I die in a nuclear holocaust, I'd like Congress, my representatives, to discuss this. Is this what we want? Do we want France to take control of our national security and initiate an action that will lead to American nuclear weapons and Russian nuclear weapons being exchanged? I'd like Congress to talk about that. I'd like the president to say, yeah, I support this, or no, I don't support this. And if you don't support it, pick up the phone and tell Macron to stand down, that America will not back this up. These are things that need to be discussed. Right now, they're not being discussed. France is on full automatic. Ladies and gentlemen, they just mobilized a regiment, gave it its orders to be prepared to go to Romania for the purposes of deployment to Ukraine. Once that happens, we're on full automatic.
All right, the memorandum of which you speak, which you authored, and which is signed by a lot of our colleagues, Karen Kwiatkowski, Matt Ho, Ray McGovern, Larry Johnson, Colonel McGregor.
For the first time, by the way, I want to point out that this is the first time that Colonel McGregor has signed a VIPS memorandum, so it's a big deal.
It is a big deal, and of course, we have posted that at Judge Knapp, and we at judgenap.com. We've also posted it under videos on Judging Freedom, where you can read the words and listen to them as they're articulated. It's not very long, but it's profound. It's a memorandum to the President of the United States, pointing out to him the potential catastrophic dangers of President Macron's musings. And we now know from what Scott has just articulated, it's more than musings. He's actually pulled the levers of power to place this in motion. Question: could this have happened without the consent of other Western leaders, particularly the President of the United States or someone in his behalf?
Well, the reason why this is happening is because Macron and France and Europe feel abandoned by the United States. They were asked by Victoria Nuland, by Jake Sullivan, by Tony Blinken, by the president himself, to lean forward aggressively in support for Ukraine. And so they did so, even though their initial instincts weren't to lean forward. But as they leaned forward, as they committed to this, it was always with the understanding that America would be right there helping pull that yoke. America backed off for any number of reasons, number one of which is that Congress has hijacked the funding that was supposed to go to Ukraine for domestic political purposes. And so now Europe is alone, and this is anger on the part of Macron, frustration, because if he pulls back, the fact that the European experiment, that NATO, the European part of NATO, is nothing more than a house of cards, an empty shell, becomes reality. And he can't afford that. Europe can't afford that. They need to maintain the perception that they matter. And so what they're doing right now is trying to say, we matter. He has talked with Schultz. He has talked to the Poles. He's talked to the British. He's talked to the Balts. He's talked to the Czechs. And they have said that we don't want to lead on this, but if you lead on this, we will follow. And so this is a sort of a game of chicken now. Macron is mobilizing troops. He's going to send them to Romania. And then what he's going to do is he's going to ask, now that I have this 2,000-man brigade in Romania, who's going to join me? And then we have to wait for the Balts to send a company, maybe a battalion. The Poles might send something. And then they get this up to 12 to 20,000. And then they cross over, gambling that Russia won't attack them. And once they cross over, you'll see a contingent coming in from other NATO nations, the coalition of the willing, to create the 60,000. So it's basically, and they're doing this without the United States. The Poles asked America to send troops to Poland to beef up the American contingent there, to free up troops for this purposes. Biden said, no, we're not sending those troops. But at no time has Biden told any of these players to stand down on this absolute nonsense of sending troops to Ukraine.
Are the French and their European colleagues naive enough to think that the Russians won't shoot at them?
They are actually. They actually believe there's a school of thought amongst many people that Russia's bluffing, that Russia that Russia's been crying wolf about nuclear doctrine, et cetera, that Russia won't use nuclear weapons, that Russia won't risk a war, and that if they send these troops into Ukraine in a non-combatant status, meaning they're not going to the front line, but rather they're going to occupy positions in the Ukrainian rear that free up Ukrainian forces to be sent, that Russia won't attack them because they're not in direct contact with another. They believe that Russia's bluffing. I think Russia sent a signal the other night when they took out an airfield on the Polish border and a rail line and things they haven't done in a while, or ever actually. And Russia's saying, we know how you get here. We know how this is done. If you cross over, we will kill you all. And Russia's not only said this, they've straight up said, a Frenchman steps foot in Ukraine, that's a dead Frenchman. We will kill them. Apparently, everybody thinks that Russia's bluffing. Let me just make it clear. I've had a lot of experience with the Russians. They don't bluff. They literally don't bluff.
I want to go back to the Moscow concert hall attack. Can you connect the dots, or is there any evidence with which to connect the dots between the boast and the threat of Victoria Nuland 2 weeks before she left office that we have a nasty surprise coming for President Putin, and this assault on innocent young people at a concert?
I think that Victoria Nuland was aware that the United States had a program in place to disrupt the elections of Vladimir Putin using Ukrainian intelligence as the proxy. I think she was broadly aware that these Russian nationalists, these 5,000 Russian nationalists, were going to invade Belgorod and Kursk. She was aware of that. She was broadly aware that the Ukrainians were going to carry out acts of sabotage and violence inside Russia. To this, whether or not she knew the specific target, I can't say that, except to say that the statement of the U.S. Embassy specified concert centers. So, what I'd love to do is subpoena her and get her before a congressional committee under oath and ask her these questions, because it would condemn not just her, but the entire Biden administration, and by extension, the entire United States, as a terrorist nation. I mean, we're the guys who claim that we fight a global war against terrorism. We have become the terrorists. I hope people understand it. We have become the terrorists. We are responsible for setting in motion events that culminated in this horrific attack in Moscow. We are. If we didn't start things, if we didn't train the Ukrainian intelligence, if we didn't have a presidential directive to disrupt the elections in Russia, I want to remind you, to disrupt the elections in Russia. All this, the Russians are interfering with American elections. We have a presidential finding directing the CIA to disrupt the presidential elections in Russia. And America's going, no, so what? Guys, we're a terrorist nation. And Victoria Nuland knows this because she is a terrorist entity and she should be held accountable.
Has the Ukrainian army effectively collapsed, or is it on the verge of collapse? And if so, is this fight no longer a proxy war? Is this now truly a fight of West versus Russia, of NATO versus Russia?
Look, the entire reason why France is talking about sending in these troops is that they want to create a condition where they have a tripwire force, where they preserve a rump state of Ukraine that will be off limits to Russian military occupation. Russia, the Russian army right now is in the process of creating what they call the Dnieper River Flotilla. And it's a division plus sized force whose mission is to patrol the Dnieper River, to control the Dnieper River. Russia doesn't control the Dnieper River right now. Why would they create a flotilla that'll be ready this summer to do just that? Because this war has reached the phase where the Ukrainian ability to hold the line that they have right now is gone. Everybody's saying they are collapsing. It will be a precipitous retreat back to the Dnieper River. At which point in time, Russia controls the river, which is an important geographical barrier. They've also are creating two combined arms army, which when combined with forces that will be released through the creation of a Dnieper River line will allow them to attack towards Kharkov and towards Odessa. This is happening. This is happening right now. This war is transitioning into a phase that can only happen with the collapse of the Ukrainian military. That's why Macron is panicking and saying we have to send in French soldiers. We're at that stage right now where the Ukrainian army, every day, they're giving up a village here, they're giving up a village there, they're giving up a village because they can't hold them and they don't have anything left. We're going to see very soon, I believe, a withdrawal to the Dnieper River line, and that's going to free up Russian forces, and then they're going to go and they're going to secure, like I said, Kharkov, Odessa, and if there's French forces in the way, they'll die.
Do you think that this will be Russia against NATO in 6 months?
I hope not. I hope NATO's smart enough to know that we can't confront Russia with anything other than nuclear weapons.
Well, they're obviously not smart enough in light of what Macron is doing and what his colleagues are prepared to back him up on, this critical mass in Romania.
Well, I mean, again, let's be clear. I think what's happening here is a game of chicken. What I mean by that is, it's like me and a bunch of my friends when we were in high school going to the quarry and staring down there at the drop to the water below, and each of us saying, "I'll jump if you jump. I'll jump if you jump." But nobody's going to jump because we're all chicken, and we're going to sit there. Well, if you ain't jumping, I ain't jumping. Then we talk ourselves out of it. I'm hoping that's what happened. I'm hoping Macron is sending troops to Romania, And then he's going to sit there and say, who's coming with me? Who's jumping? And hopefully everybody else except the Baltics, who will immediately send their little chihuahuas to join him. But other than that, I don't think anybody of substance is going to come. And I'm hoping through action like this memorandum, et cetera, that we get the United States to say, be like the adult that shows up at the court and says, y'all ain't jumping. You're not going to make that jump. That isn't happening. Go home. That's what I'm hoping happens. But the problem is, like stupid teenagers, once one jumps, they all jump. And that's the danger that we have here. But it's not inevitable that that's going to happen yet, because I still think that there's military professionals around Macron telling them just simple things. Hey, boss, we can't sustain it. We put 2,000 guys across the border. Where's the fuel come from? Where's the ammunition come from? Where's the food come from? If we get into a shooting match, we run out of ammunition in 3 days. We've got nothing. We don't have the logistics ability to support this. We have 4 aircraft that we can surge into Ukraine. They'll be shot down. The airfield will be short. Then we got nothing. We don't have the military resources to do this. And hopefully the Germans are telling Schultz too, we can't do this. The Poles are saying, hey, boss, we ain't got the troops. We're not trained to do this. NATO can't do this. This is the reality. They can fake themselves into doing it. They can initiate a process that looks good on paper for a couple days, but when the reality, remember, tactics, operations, that's for amateurs. Logistics is for the military professionals. And logistically, NATO simply can't get involved in Ukraine. They don't have the resources.
Do you think the American public understands how close we might be to a war in which the European leaders would expect us to come to their aid? A war that they have, well, we initially caused, but now they've exacerbated it by this critical mass of troops in Romania?
No, if the American people were aware of this, we'd have millions of people in the streets right now demanding that this not happen. I would hope so, because I don't believe the American people are collectively suicidal. I do believe the American people oftentimes are collectively stupid, but you can overcome stupidity by acquiring knowledge and information, which is why we wrote the memorandum. But I'd like to believe that once the American people realize that we are on this automatic course towards nuclear annihilation, that if we don't do anything to stop this, a possible or probable outcome is that they won't survive the summer. All you guys planning a summer vacation right now, it's going to end with a blinding flash if we don't stop this. If we don't stop this insanity. If the American people knew this, they'd be in the streets. They'd be filling, millions of people be surrounding the White House. Central Park in New York City would be packed. San Francisco would be shut down, because the American people should come out, stand up and say, not just no, but hell no, not in our name. But they're not. They're all getting up today, getting ready, going to work, living their lives as if nothing's happened.